All right, here's the scene today. We're on Brodhead Creek, looking at the Route 191 overpass just before it connects with Route 447. And we're gonna paint this scene. We're gonna use acrylic paint, and we'll see how it goes. Gonna drop the camera down just so you could see me work here. Pretty standard palette. We have ultramarine blue. This is a little unusual hue that I've been using a lot lately. This is transparent orange oxide, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, cad yellow, cad red, Mars black, and a little bit of titanium white. So go ahead, I'm going to tone the canvas here. I'm using a 7.5 inch by 5 inch canvas panel, very inexpensive. Do these sketches, anywhere from 3 to 6 days a week, so don't want to spend too much money on these. These are really just the training ground for larger paintings, although every now and again you get a nice result from these as well. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and spray my canvas just to get the paint moving a little better. These are thick-bodied acrylic paints, mostly Golden brand paints. I also have a little bit of Liquitex. That's what this transparent orange oxide is. And we'll go ahead and cover nearly the entire canvas. Might leave a little pocket of white here where the largest sky shape will be. You get a little bit of this burnt sienna mixed in as well. I use my paper towel just to carve out some of the major shapes, focusing on the lighter values that I see in the scene. That's mainly going to be the sky and the reflected sky off of the water. So bridge shape here, and then a larger sky plane here. It's going to get rid of some of the excess paint on the canvas. That'll all dry pretty quickly because this is acrylic paints, but we just want to make sure that we don't have a hard time layering over some of the layers to come. All right. Go ahead and get a little angle brush going here. I'm going to use a little bit of my Mars black, a little bit of my blue, a little bit of my orange, and yellow ochre to create kind of a purplish, dark purplish green. And we're going to use this muddy color to map in some of the darker shadow patterns. So that's going to be the shoreline, which is going to run at a kind of broken diagonal. And it's going to be the bridge, the bottom of the bridge, which is from this vantage point running almost perpendicular, almost horizontal to the surface of the water, and it is a rather high bridge. slight angle, which I exaggerated a little bit there by accident. We'll correct that over time. The profile of the underside of the bridge is not all that visible, so it's going to be a relatively thin plane. All right, back to the screen. And then we have this kind of juts out. Suggests a little bit of a bend. Some trees, and there's some trees that will come out in front of the bridge. Okay. And we'll go ahead and lighten this up a little bit. Still dark and muddy, but more of a tilt toward the dark greens that we'll see. And we're just going to go ahead and create a pretty decent pile of this. Because we're going to block in the major shapes. This will get lightened up a lot as we go, but we just want to kind of create the first layer here, which will suggest the darkest shadow patterns within the scene, and we'll come over the top of this with our brighter greens and so forth in just a little bit. All right. All right, now I'm going to use this dirty brush, and I'm going to create a light green. It's going to be much darker than the actual color is. A light grayish green. For this bridge. The side of the bridge here. This could get lightened up quite a bit, but for now, and cooled off a little bit too, meaning more blue will be added, but for now, just want to block in this shape. And while we have this color here, we're gonna get some of that same color cooled off a little bit into the water, suggesting a reflection of the plant life around Brodhead Creek here in the water. Use the same brush, and I'm going to get a mixture of a little yellow ochre, a little orange, and a little bit of that muddy green. I'm going to use that to suggest the top cement part of the bridge where the railing is. Get some of that color in the water here and amongst the trees. All right, I'll switch brushes, and I'm going to get a little bit of the sky color mixed in here, just so we can key off of that sky and get some of the suggestions of reflections going in the water. We kind of have a partly cloudy day today, which is part of the reason why I'm not finishing up some of my existing projects. I have a garden painting that I'm working on. A large floral painting that I'm working on, or in the preliminary project planning phases for. It's a little too light. All right. I'm going to stop messing with that and build up some of our darks. Just a little more. So we're going to get a little bit more of a saturated green going. Yellow ochre, cad yellow, blue. bird sienna. And it's pretty close, so sprinkle that in here and there. This is going to be on areas where the sun is actually catching some of the foliage and lighting it up a bit. And I get a little bit more yellow ochre, a little bit more burnt sienna in there. Getting those major shapes blocked in. Yellow ochre, blue. Just gonna get a slightly cooler version of this going. Quite a bit more blue for those areas that are in shadow. It's gonna be those areas under the bridge, or underneath foliage close to the shoreline. A little bit more of that more saturated green, almost pure green, yellow and blue, touch of burnt sienna. Get some of that into the water selectively. All right. And a little bit more of that cooler green here. I'm going to come through and reinforce some of my darkest shadow patterns here in just a moment. Okay, I'll use the same brush to do that. I'm gonna get a little black, a little Mars black. And we're just gonna come along and just reinforce some of those darkest of dark areas. Just so we don't lose the important shapes that this are going to serve as the skeleton essentially of this sketch, this composition, the design. some of these down into the water. Kind of give myself a little marker for some of the stones. Do burnt sienna, a little bit of Mars black, burnt sienna. We're going to start warm. And we have a big stone right here, and another big stone right here. This one's kind of got a angular shape. This one's more of a rectangle. I'm gonna suggest the shadow side on this is over here. There we go. Okay, use some of that color. Shoreline here. Kind of a dark burnt sienna, black and burnt sienna mixed together, dark brown, reddish brown. I'm going to use in that same color and add a little bit of blue and a little bit of cad red, and we're going to be a little bit more purple than brown, and we're going to just use that to strengthen some of the lines amongst the shapes we see within and amongst the foliage. All right, coming along. I'll go ahead and use the same brush. Just darken that purple with a little bit of black and maybe add a little bit of yellow ochre. And we're going to suggest some of the shapes that'll make up the tree trunks and branches. And this is going to get covered in spots here. Use that same color to suggest some of the shadows we see within and amongst the rocks on the creek bed here. And I'm going to use the same brush to mix up a little bit of muddy yellow ochre with a little bit of burnt sienna. There we go. To suggest the general colors that we see on the creek bed as it gets closer to us here. Trying not to get lost in the details and just squinting my eyes and look at the basic shapes that I see. Okay. All right. We'll switch brushes for a brief moment here. Meanwhile, I'm praying that my three-legged stool here doesn't break down on me. It's kind of straddling a couple of rocks. This could get ugly pretty quick. Let's hope that doesn't happen. All right, I'm gonna lighten up this existing green I have and add a little bit of yellow ochre to it. A lot more white. And we do see some beautiful sunlight lighting up most of this side of the bridge now. Do see some of that reflecting right here. Play with that a little bit as the painting progresses, but that's pretty much it. And we see a kind of dirtier version of this light color. Top here. And we'll use that to maybe enhance this rock shape a little bit. We're going to come back to this quite a bit as the painting progresses, and it's just, for some reason for me, the way rocks tend to progress in a painting, they generally will require quite a bit of attention. I'll get some of this on the shoreline, suggesting maybe light is reflecting off of some of the rocks and soil on the shoreline. All right, switching brushes yet again. Go into my pile of green, a little bit of blue, a lot of yellow ochre, which I guess technically is a green to begin with. A little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow. We're try and keep this from mixing completely. We kind of want marbleized paint if possible. Might not work out that way. And we'll just start suggesting areas where the light is catching the foliage. Bring a little bit of a different, paler green into this because we have these plants. I don't know what they're called here, but they have these flowers on them, which kind of show that sort of color. Rip some of that out of the brush, so we're dry brushing here, and we'll pull some of that down. Get some of that darker green going. A little black, a little blue, a bit of yellow. It's kind of a washed out, darker green. Just gonna get that into the mix here. Light bounces around everywhere, especially in water. Blue out. The light reflections off in the distance a little bit. Get a much thinner brush. And we're gonna get light blue, almost sky blue. Maybe a little cooler going for the water off into the distance here. It's just what I see. So it's no formula, it's just what I see. And a couple of random spots where it shows up. A little less saturated, much more broken. All right. I don't want to dirty that up too much, so I'm going to get another thin brush. And we're going to get a darker blue, almost like a purpley gray on the cool side here. I'll use that to suggest some of the shadows. For example, the shadow of the bridge, the bottom side of the bridge shows up here. I'm going to break that up a little bit. Some of those strokes are a little too heavy. Just keep going. A little bit of a greener version of that. Same color. A little black, a little blue, orange, a little red, a little bit more blue, a little bit more red. And we'll just work our way through here. We're going to come through with, again, almost some pure black. Just to honor some of those areas where we have some of the darkest shadows. Make sure we don't lose them and their connection to one another. So let's dark green going. Got a blued out version of this purple. Very purpley gray, and we're just going to come across the bottom side of this part of the bridge that's in shadow. A little warmer in spots, but for the most part, cooler in spots. We're gonna wrap up here just a few moments, just at a time. So what I'm gonna do is focus in on a couple of things. A couple of highlights. We're gonna create a light pink highlight. Just titanium white and cad red, maybe a little bit of transparent orange oxide and yellow ochre in there. We're going to use this for our brightest highlights in the water, which are for the most part going to be the suggestions of some of these bridge reflections and the direct reflection of sunlight. Some areas we'll have to tone that down a little bit. Okay. And then maybe we'll get a little bit of this up in some of these sunlit areas on the bridge, suggesting maybe a couple of spots where the light is really intense. All right. Now I'll hook that off, and I'm going to go back to my blue. I'm going to break up some of these white spots a little bit with the blue reflection. Okay. A couple of final things before we wrap up. I'm going to get a grayed out version of the green here. Really desaturated and light in color. And we're going to get that up into some of the trees, but also in the reflections. Part of me wishes I could stick around and try and capture some of the geese that are swimming, but I just don't have time today, so we'll maybe leave that for another day. What I will do is go into this warmer yellow ochre color. We're gonna tone it down, a little bit of black, and we're gonna just restate some of these areas where you could see the river stones coming through. A little bit, a little yellow ochre, a little bit of white, and desaturate it quite a bit. A little bit of our gray. Get some areas that are lit up a little bit more. Suggested in there. And we'll get that on our bigger stone that's coming out of the water here. Okay. All right, use the same brush, and we're just going to restate some of the greens. So a little blue, a little bit of yellow ochre, some of the darker desaturated greens that are in the reflections as well. Before we wrap up, bit of our burnt sienna, desaturated a little bit. Our rocks that are out of the water, and then quite a bit of our white and yellow ochre on top. And then blued out purpley gray in some areas too. Including some of the rocks that are off into the distance. Just suggesting them. Maybe get some of that up into the bridge. Okay, one final pass with my bluest, most intense highlight here. On the water. All right, I think we're gonna leave it there for now. Gotta get to work. Thanks for checking out my channel and the video here. Hope you enjoyed. This is Brodhead Creek near the 191 overpass. Hope you have a great day. Stay well. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care.